We're going to be talking a bit about environmental science today. We have a huge range of degrees available that tie into environmental sciences. So we've got a whole range of specializations you can see on the screen at the moment. So they're specifically named degrees that specialize in an aspect of environmental science. Obviously there's straight environmental science, but paleontology, geography, marine biology, all of those things tie in as well. We've also got some majors, so if you're not certain, if you know you want to do something environment related but you're not really sure what, I'd recommend you do just a general Bachelor of Science and then take a look at one of these majors and choose one of those, or you can choose two of them as well if you like. That gives you a little bit more flexibility than specific degrees. What we're going to be doing today though is hearing from two of our undergraduate students in environmental science. They're both going to be talking about things that they've done here at Flinders, projects that they've worked on, stuff that happens in their degrees. So I think we might make a start. I'll introduce both of you before we get started. So this is Emily. She's doing a Bachelor of Science in Animal Behaviour, and this is Abby, who's doing a Bachelor of Science in Biodiversity and Conservation. I think it's just about time I stopped talking now. So Emily, do you want to come over here and have a chat about your student experience?
Thank you.
All right. There you go.
Oh, thank you.
Beautiful.
Hi everyone. So during my first sort of portion of my undergrad degree, I was able to go overseas and experience a trip overseas with uni. This I was able to do through a loan as well, so there are opportunities for, if money is an issue, that there's loans or scholarships that can be taken. So I went to Gondwana Game Reserve, and Gondwana Game Reserve is here, you can see on the screen, just at the bottom of South Africa, sort of near Cape Town, but sort of I guess in the middle between both Cape Town and Johannesburg, sort of, not technically in the middle, but sort of they're the main places that are known in South Africa. So we had the opportunity to do a range of activities while we were here. So the first one, we looked into vegetation survey. So we were looking at amazing fynbos that's within the region. So we were looking at massive proteas, which a lot of you may be aware of or know about. So some days we were studying protea forests, and then other days we were sort of in really grassy, flat grasslands. So it was a range of different environments that we were exposed to, really understanding how to identify different plants and how to know whether they've been grazed upon and who's actually grazed upon them, whether they're antelope or sort of rhino, depending on how the leaves have been removed. We also were able to do game drives as well. So here's a little snippet of the different animals that we saw while we were on the reserve. On the left here, over here is actually, oh no, you can't see it there. Over on the left you can see one of my friends has some dung in her hand. It's actually elephant dung. So when we're on the game drives, if we saw a herd of elephants, we'd stop and we'd start doing an elephant survey, looking at how their health condition is, collecting dung if it was there, and then that will be sent off to the lab for further analysis on that herd's condition. We also did bird ringing. So this is looking at how birds can be identified. So you have a little metal ring that you put on their sort of, as you can see in the top one, you just put a little metal clasp on their leg, and that's able to identify them in the future. So this doesn't cause harm to the birds, and then you can recapture them later and assess their condition and the overall species. And then finally we looked into a group research project. So our first attempt didn't go very well, which really taught us how to try things again, rethink, ask questions, and maybe look at a different approach. So we were looking at small mammals originally. We unfortunately didn't get any, so the next time we looked at grazers and looked at whether different species of grazers such as impala and plain zebras, whether they associated more with each other when there were babies within the groups. So it was really amazing this trip to be able to get a range of experiences in all different fields. So we were only there for about 4 weeks to be able to have this experience of all the different different opportunities within animal behaviour and understand within the field, be able to experience the skills and be out in the field and learning these different things. So what I really learned from the trip was to ask questions, try things. If it doesn't work, try a different way, and really work with each other to do that. And it was really interesting and powerful to know that trying different things and really finding my passions within those different things. So at first we were all sort of like, oh yeah, I really like nature or something, and then really knitting down to the nitty-gritties and being like, oh, actually no, I really like maybe bird ringing in comparison to vegetation sort of isn't my thing, and I'm not really sure how to do stuff with plants. So yeah, it was really cool to go on these trips and learn more about myself and more about my passions within animal behaviour. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much, Emily. Also.
So my name's Abby and I'm studying a Bachelor of Science specialising in biodiversity and conservation, as we mentioned. So I just finished my 3rd year and I'm due to start my honours year in July, where I'll be working in the molecular ecology lab looking at genetic differentiation of populations of Amazonian fish, which I'm quite excited about. So in January of last year, I went on a marine research trip to a small tropical island in the Western Pacific called Palau. So I got academic credit for this topic, which means that it counts as an elective topic that goes towards my degree. And I also got a $3,000 scholarship for this topic, which was through the New Colombo Plan, which is an Australian government initiative which aims to lift knowledge of the Indo-Pacific region in Australia by funding Australian undergraduates to go study here. So Palau is a really tiny archipelago of islands. You can drive from one end to the other in about an hour, but it's also home to some really world-class biologically rich coral reefs and also the world's very first shark sanctuary, which was really cool. So just about every day, a boat would take us out, we'd go through the Palauan rock islands and we'd snorkel through coral reefs to learn marine research techniques. So this was really centred around learning tropical fish and coral identification, and also how to conduct transect surveys to assess the abundance of these. So other days we spent kayaking through the rock islands to look at birds, or hiking to waterfalls. We also went to the world famous Jellyfish Lake, which is a small lake within the archipelago which is home to about 1 million golden jellyfish, which was really cool too. We saw lots of tropical fish, turtles, reef sharks, and a group of us that had our scuba diving licences. We were able to scuba dive on our days off, and there we saw manta rays and a lot more sharks and turtles as well. I mean, we really saw a lot. So other days we spent teaching shark conservation at local elementary schools. This was through a program with the Micronesian Shark Foundation. So shark finning is a really big issue across the globe. This happens when people cut the dorsal fins off of sharks and throw the rest of the shark overboard, usually still alive. So in developing countries like these, there really isn't a lot of awareness for the issues that this causes both to the sharks and the ecosystem. And a lot of people, they're brought up to believe that once the shark's dorsal fin is cut off, it'll just grow back, which isn't true at all. So the Micronesian Shark Foundation, they aim to teach the truth about these practices and teach young people about the importance of sharks in ecosystems, and just really that sharks aren't something to be afraid of and they should be protected because they're worth a lot more alive through tourism than they are dead through shark finning. So yeah, we helped with this by going into classrooms and teaching about shark conservation and dressing up as a shark, dancing around, which was a lot of fun too.
Who's in that shark costume in that photo?
I feel like that might have been Anna, I think. It was
Not you.
Not me. At that time. But we also were able to carry out our own scientific communication project, which was the what we were marked on to get credit for our degree. So we got to pick a topic of our choice, and I looked at the importance of education and conservation, and I used our trips to these elementary schools as an opportunity to talk to the students about why they want to see their reefs protected and what they think that people can do to help protect their reefs, which was really eye-opening and inspiring to hear these people's thoughts on that. So I made a video which was centred around how Palau is really a leading country in marine conservation, and I included these snippets of the kids talking to help show why education plays such an important role in this. So there's lots of opportunities to study biology at Flinders, both within Australia and across the globe. And it's really worthwhile getting involved in one of these trips, because it's a really valuable experience both professionally and personally. So I came away from Palau with a really fresh perspective on what I wanted to do when I finished studying, because I gained a much wider awareness of the opportunities for conservation that the world holds. So I'm hoping once I finish my honours now that I might be able to find another internship overseas somewhere so I can keep gaining experience in marine research. Hoping to maybe at some point even do my PhD so I can start doing my own research to contribute to marine conservation. That's where I'm at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abby. Alright, let's move the camera back. So now is a really good time. If you have any questions for our presenters, please do send them into the chat. We've still got a little bit of time to answer them if anybody has any. And indeed we do have a couple of questions in here. Alright. So a question for both of you. Did you get taught the skills for these studies and subjects before you left, or did you have to learn how to do it while you were there?
So for mine, so we were doing like transect surveys and things like that. So we'd sort of done a little bit of it, terrestrial transect surveys, like through like grasses and things like that. But we sort of learnt the technique of doing it while like snorkeling in the water. So that was a bit different. But yeah, most of it was really kind of learnt as we go kind of stuff. It was a bit different or quite a lot different to things that I'd already done on campus.
Yeah, I agree with that. We had a few practicals at uni where we did look at vegetation surveys, for example, but they weren't to the same scale that we did while we were overseas. So a lot of it was diving in without the previous skills and knowledge. So we really just built upon it there as well, particularly with the research project as well, which has helped in honours this year. But yeah, we didn't really sort of just had the knowledge but hadn't the skills and applied it.
It's quite a lot different doing something so intensively. So like during our regular study, like here at university, we might go on like a day's field trip a couple of times through the semester or something and learn some skills there. But while you're like on a trip like this that goes for like a number of weeks, like you're doing something every day, so you get quite a lot more experience. So that's quite a lot more helpful. Yeah, to do things a lot and really learn it really well.
For sure. Question for Emily. How did the animals react to you being there, and did you get close to them?
So we were in cars, on the back of utes for the time that we were there. So we'd always stay a set distance from them, particularly depending on what animal it was as well. If for some reason we were coming around, like we had sort of driven around the corner and we sort of startled an animal, depending on what it was, we would normally drive away, particularly for rhinos and stuff like that. But we always stayed in the car and didn't drive towards the animal. We always came sort of beside the herd. If I'm completely honest, I can't remember the set distance. We did try to stay away from them, at least 50 metres, I believe. That comes to my head.
That seems safe.
Yeah, but we never tried to, we never cut animals off. We wouldn't do what we unfortunately saw quite a lot of the time, is sort of like when a tourist vehicle would sort of try and get a reaction from the animals. And we did unfortunately hear a few elephant trumpets while we were trying to conduct some surveys. Not because that was a annoyance to us or anything. It's just showing that the animal was quite stressed. And
yeah, for sure. Question for Abby. Did the local people in Palau already know much about shark conservation and value sharks?
Well, in Palau, it's quite interesting because compared to a lot of the sort of like nearby islands, like you go to like Fiji or like Bali and things like that, there is a lot greater of an awareness for things like that there. So like, yeah, it was like the first shark sanctuary was made in Palau, which means that, yeah, sharks are really protected there. You're not allowed to like fish them and things like that, like legally. So, and like even things like pollution is a lot better there than like sort of nearby islands. So they're already doing like a lot of really great things, like trying to discourage like plastic use, and like the people who are hosting us, they sent us out with lunches in like bento boxes rather than like plastic wrap and things like that. So yeah, they're really quite ahead of the game compared to a lot of developing countries, which is really good. But there, yeah, is still always a lot to learn and a lot to teach in regards to how to protect sharks and things like that, and other things you can do.
And it's super important to figure out what they know ahead of time, so that you know what you're teaching. And
they seem quite open to learning over there too, and they find everything we say really interesting, which is
that's
really nice.
Great. That's my favourite type of audience. There are also a couple of questions in here about the logistics of the trips and how the university organised them. I'm going to ask this, but I'm going to preface this with a bit of information. So as I'm sure our viewers are all aware, all international travel is off for the moment, and that includes all university travel. So while these trips, we very much hope to organise them in the future, it's not something that's going to happen in 2020 necessarily. We're thinking about 2021, 2022. So we definitely want these trips to continue going ahead, but obviously just at the moment they're on pause. So with that in mind, how many students gets to go on these trips, and how do they choose who gets to go on them?
I think mine, I'm not even sure, maybe like, it might have been about 15 of us or something. I can't remember the exact number, but yeah, basically you kind of had to apply, send in like a little application form, which applied for the scholarship with the New Colombo plan as well. And I think it went a little bit on our GPA. It had to be at a certain level to be considered first. But if the slots weren't filled, then they'd let other people come on as well. Like, it was pretty easy to organise, and I think pretty much most people who applied got in, which was really good.
So competitive, but not hyper competitive.
Yeah. No, you've got to
ask
chance.
for it.
Like, you've got to put yourself out there, and I think they look at like sort of responses and like to questions and stuff like as well in conjunction with your GPA, like how keen you are to learn too.
Yeah, I would agree. Ours was pretty much the same. Yeah, we had a few more people on this trip. I think it was a full trip, so I think it may have been about 22 people on this one. But similar thing, like putting yourself out there and having a look and asking lecturers and sort of getting out there. I think the GPA did count as well. But my trip was a little bit longer ago, so I can't remember specifically that.
All right, so we're coming up to time, so if you do have any more questions, please do drop them in the chat. In the meantime, I just want to do a quick plug for our degrees again. So like I said, these are all the specializations and the majors available that are related to environmental science. If you want to know the real difference between them all, if you want to see what you're actually going to study, I would recommend checking them out on the website and taking a look at this button, the View Study Program button. That will tell you what actual topics you're going to be studying, and that way you can get a little bit more information on what's involved in each of those degrees. I also want to do a quick plug for some upcoming webinars. So on Monday, we have an introduction to observational drawing that I'm really looking forward to. We have a student who's going to be showing us how she draws in particularly biology, but also in other STEM subjects as well, because that's actually a very useful skill, being able to sketch. If you're interested in chemistry, we also have a student panel coming up next week in chemistry, so current chemistry students talking about their experiences. And if you want to hear about a few more of these experiences, we have an engineering and a biology student experience webinar coming up in another couple of weeks as well. You can go to flinders.edu.au/webinars for a full list, so register there if you're particularly interested. Finally, if you want to get in touch with us, stem@flinders.edu.au is the best way to do it. Alternatively, we also have a prospective students team here who can talk to you one-on-one about the degrees that you might want to do and what sorts of things you'd be studying in those degrees. So that's a great way to get in touch with them as well. Other than that, Abby and Emily, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, not that I can think of. No, it's more. It would be more about, like, I know that when I was younger and trying to work out what I wanted to do and what I wanted to study, but definitely agree with what you said, Ellen, and having a look at the different options and like asking questions, and no questions too silly to try something out, ask a question. You at least you'll get an answer, and then you'll either be like, cool, that answers it, or oh, now I'm more curious and more confused. But yeah, definitely just getting out there and having a look at different things and finding a passion.
Yeah, I think it's just really worth, like, if you're not 100% sure what you want to do, to just kind of get involved in a lot of these like sort of extra things you can do that aren't necessarily just part of your degree. That's kind of how I've kind of discovered a lot of my passions too. Because like when I came into university, I had no idea about all these programs. Like they ran to study overseas and interstate and things like that. But once I sort of started asking around and hearing about them and getting involved in them, that I sort of started to discover what my passions really are too. So it's really worthwhile to put yourself out there like that. You definitely won't regret it.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good advice, is to just try a lot of different things if you're not sure, and you've got the option to do that at university as well. But yeah, also when in doubt, get in touch with us as well. Alright, well thank you all very much for listening. We hope that was interesting. Like I said, feel free to get in touch with us if you've got any extra questions. But thank you both, Emily and Abby, and best of luck with your studies for the rest of the semester.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.